my hope that, we're going to move away from identity politics. And I do think the Democratic Party historically has focused on the identity of candidates. And it's why I tell folks that we don't need a country that's built on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We need a country that's built on merit, excellence, intelligence, and integrity. And that's the case, should be a case not only in, the corporate space or an industry, but in politics as well. Does a candidate connect with people? Does a candidate have the values of a particular community? That should be the focus. And that's been the focus of the Republican Party. And it hasn't been the focus on the Democratic Party. And, they certainly pick and choose when they want to highlight a candidate's race and use that for political expediency. But the Republican Party has been consistent that we're a party about merit and opportunity, and certainly think that's been the case and will continue to be the case. And I'm hopeful that, as we proceed, that we proceed as a society that's focused on merit, not the color of someone's skin. I think, when it came to Virginia, certainly I was disappointed to see the result. I went to the state personally and campaigned for my friend and former colleague, Jason Miyares. And so was very disappointed to see that, Democrats, whether it was in the governor's race or in the AG's race, decided to go in a different direction. And I certainly think that, again, they the leadership in the Democratic Party certainly discounts race when it's not somebody from their campaign or not somebody on their side of the aisle that is in the election. And that is what you saw here, is that they discounted it and they played it down, didn't have much significance. But if I'm being candid with you, I think that we shouldn't be focused on, someone's color. We should be focused on, what their values and, how they fight for, their particular state or commonwealth or country. And my hope is that we get to a place where it's not even a conversation. It is about, as I'm running for the United States Senate in Kentucky, I want folks to focus on my values. When I was the Attorney General, certainly won, I think 113 of 120 counties, and people didn't care what I looked like; they cared about my values. And so I'm optimistic that when it comes to the future of this country, people here in Kentucky and, I think in Virginia and a lot of places is, do you stand with the America First agenda? Are you focused on, standing with President Trump? And, that's certainly something that I'm focused on, in my race here for the Senate here in Kentucky. I think, there was a reason that President Obama was referred to as our lecturer in chief. He likes to lecture and, has had a history of speaking down to folks, if they're not doing exactly what he deems is appropriate. And, of course, you cite that reference in the 2016 campaign. He chastised black men, I want to say maybe in Pennsylvania in the 2024 campaign. So, yeah, he's got a history and track record of injecting these sorts of, comments that aren't helpful to the national dialogue, when he thinks it's advantageous for his particular candidate. And, I think we would all serve ourselves well if we decided to focus on the candidate and their values and what they are ultimately about, as opposed to, the color of their skin. I mean, it's an adage that I think the Republican Party has been focused on, which is that we need to focus on merit. That's been the traditional position of the Republican Party, and one that I'm proud of. Democrats always try to inject identity politics into our elections, and it sows division when we don't need it. And so I don't think President Obama's commentary has been hopeful or helpful. And I'm hopeful going forward that everyone will revisit whether we need to just focus on people and their merit as opposed to what they look like in identity politics. I think when it comes to the Democratic Party, they've certainly are trying to figure out what their next steps are, and that means they bring in people from the past and have them be a part of the conversation. We've got a standard bearer within the Republican Party, and we've got right now in the White House, that standard bearer is President Trump. And, I think it's incumbent upon us as Republicans to be focused on the Trump agenda and how we can advance the Trump agenda and the America First agenda to stand up for hardworking Americans. That's why, President Trump was elected. It's because he resonated with so many people across the political spectrum and said, we're going to stand up for the citizens of the United States. We're going to be about law and order, and we're going to be about putting more money into the pockets of moms and dads all across this country. And so I think that's an important message, and one that resonates with people across the country, and one that Republicans have to focus on. And it's something that I think is important. And President Trump has got the loudest voice in the Republican Party, and his voice is much bigger than former President Obama's. And I appreciate the way President Trump's leading this country and fighting for the hardworking men and women of our Commonwealth here in Kentucky and across this country.